At that time again, Mahamati the Bodhisattva Mahasattva said this to the Blessed One. It was told at one time by the Blessed One, the Tathagata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, that the Lokayatika who is skilled in various forms of incantation and in the art of eloquence is not to be honored, adored, and reverently attended upon. For what one gains from such devotions is worldly enjoyments and not the Dharma or truth. For what reason is this said? Blessed One, that by devoting ourselves to the Lokayatika who is skilled in varieties of incantations and in the art of eloquence, worldly enjoyments are gained but not the Dharma or truth. Said the Blessed One. The Lokayatika who is skilled in varieties of incantations and in the art of eloquence, Mahamati, puts the minds of the ignorant in utter confusion by means of various reasonings. By clever manipulation of words and phrases, and what he teaches being the mere prattle of a child as far as one can make out is not at all in accordance with truth nor in unison with sense. For this reason, Mahamati, the Lokayatika is said to be skilled in varieties of incantations and in the art of eloquence. He attracts the ignorant by making clever use of various words, but he never leads them to the way of truth and right teaching. As he himself does not understand what all things mean, he puts the minds of the ignorant into utter confusion by his dualistic views, thus ruining himself. Not being released of the transition from one path to another. Not understanding that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself. And attaching himself to the idea of self-nature in external things, the Lokayatika knows no deliverance from discrimination. For this reason, Mahamati, the Lokayatika who is clever in various incantations and in the art of eloquence, being thus never emancipated from such calamities one as birth, disease, sorrow, lamentation, pain, and despair, leads the ignorant into bewilderment by means of various words, phrases, reasons, examples, and conclusions. Mahamati, Indra was a brilliant Lokayatika whose knowledge made him master of many treatises and who was himself the author of a work on sound. He had a disciple who, assuming the body of a serpent, went up to heaven and got into the society of the god Indra. Making up a thesis, he challenged the god. Either your 1,000-spoked chariot be smashed to pieces, or every one of my own serpenthoods be cut off. In the argument, the Lokayatika disciple who had assumed the form of a serpent defeated the god opponent, whereupon the 1,000-spoked chariot was smashed to pieces. The disciple then came down again to this world. In such a way, Mahamati, the Lokayatika has a system composed of various reasonings and exemplifications. And, knowing well even the minds of the animal world, puts the gods and fighting demons in utter confusion by means of various words and phrases. He then makes them tenaciously adhere to the notion of coming and going. How much more human beings? For this reason, Mahamati, the Lokayatika is to be shunned, for he carries with him the cause leading to the birth of pain. No homage, no reverence, no service is to be shown him. Mahamati, the attainment of the Lokayatika does not go beyond the realm of the body and knowledge belonging to it. Though he may explain his materialism by using varieties of words and phrases amounting to 100,000. But in after times, after 500 years, divisions will take place among his followers, leading them to wrong reasonings and demonstrations. Divisions will abound because of this, not being able to hold disciples. Thus, Mahamati, materialism splitting into many parties and adhering to varieties of reasonings is explained by the philosophers, each of whom clings to his way of reasoning as he knows no truth existing by itself. While this is not at all the case with all the philosophers who have their own treatises and doctrines. Materialism is asserted under various disguises which are explained by 100,000 different methods. There is in them also no truth existing by itself, and they do not recognize that theirs is materialism because of their stupidity. 1. Said Mahamati, if all the philosophers teach materialism by means of various words, phrases, examples, and conclusions, which are not the truth as it is, but are their own selfish assertions tenaciously maintained, Does not the Blessed One too teach materialism by means of various words and phrases, to the assemblages of the gods, demons, and human beings, who come from various countries? I say, materialism which is not the truth of self-realization but is something like the discourses of all the philosophers? The Blessed One said, I do not teach materialism, nor coming and going. But I teach, Mahamati, that which is not coming and going. Now, Mahamati, coming means production and mass, it is born of accumulation. Going, Mahamati, means destruction. That which is not coming and going is designated unborn. Mahamati, I do not teach anything approaching the discrimination of the philosophers. For what reason? Because there are no external objects, there is nothing to get attached to. When one abides in mind only, beyond which there is no external world, dualism ceases. As there is no realm of form based on discrimination, one comes to recognize that there is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself. And for these reasons the discrimination of what is seen of the mind itself does not take place. Owing to the cessation of discrimination, one enters into the triple emancipation where is the state of no form, emptiness, and effortlessness. Hence it is called deliverance. I remember, Mahamati, when I was staying in a certain place, a Brahmin Lokayatika approached where I was and having approached suddenly asked me, saying, Gautama, is all created? I said this to him. Brahman, if all is created, this is the first school of materialism. Gautama, is all uncreated? Brahman, if all is uncreated, this is the second school of materialism. Thus to state that all is non-eternal, or that all is eternal, or that all is born, or that all is unborn, this, Brahman, is the sixth school of materialism. Again, Mahamati, the Brahmin Lokayatika said this to me. Gautama, is all one? Is all different? Is all characterized with bothness? Is all characterized with not bothness? Is all to be regarded as subject to causation since all is seen as born of varieties of causes? This, Brahman, is the 10th school of materialism. Again, Gautama, is all explainable? Is all unexplainable? Is there an ego soul? Is there no ego soul? Is this world real? Is this world not real? Is there another world? Is there no other world? Is another world existent or non-existent? One, is there emancipation? Is there no emancipation? Is all momentary? Is all not momentary? Are space, apratisamkunara atu and nirvana, O Gautama, are they created or uncreated? Is there the middle existence? Is there no middle existence? 1. The Chinese translations omit this question. 2. Annihilation taking place without premeditation. One of the three non-effect producing objects. I then said this to him, Mahamati. If so, Brahman, this is materialism. It is not mine. O Brahman, it is your worldly philosophy. I explain, Brahman, that the triple world has its cause in the habit energy of discrimination going on since beginningless time on account of error and wrong reasoning. For discrimination takes place. Brahman, because it is not recognized that there is no external world but the mind itself, and not because an external world is seen as the object of cognition. According to the philosophers, there is a triple concordance of an ego soul, sense organs, and an objective world, but such is not mine. Brahman. I do not belong to the school of causation, nor to the school of no causation, except that I teach the chain of origination as far as the thought-constructed world of grasped and grasping exists depending on discrimination. This is not understood by you and others who cherish the notion of an ego soul and its continuity. Mahamati, space, nirvana, and causation exist in enumeration. As realities they are unobtainable. Hence the question whether they are created or not requires no answering. Again, Mahamati, the Brahmin Lokayatika said this. Is the triple world to be regarded as caused by ignorance, desire, and action? Or is it causeless? Brahman, this twofold question again belongs to materialism. Gautama, are all things to be conceived under the aspect of individuality and generality? This, too, Brahman, belongs to materialism. So long as there is a mental perturbation which makes one cling to an objective world of discrimination, there is materialism. Further, Mahamati, this Brahman materialist said this to me. Gautama, is there any philosophy that is not of the world? All the truth that is taught by all the philosophers by means of varieties of words and phrases, by means of reasons, examples, and conclusions, by general consent, Gautama, belongs to me. Brahman. There is something that does not belong to you. Though it is not beyond the truth of general consent, nor independent of varieties of words and phrases, and further, it is not out of accord with reason. The Brahman asked, is there any philosophy that is not of the world and yet belongs to the general opinion of the world? Brahman. There is that which does not belong to materialism and which is not reached by your wisdom nor by that of the philosophers who cling to false discriminations and wrong reasonings as they fail to see the unreality of external objects. By this is meant the cessation of discrimination. When it is recognized that there is nothing beyond what is seen of the mind itself, the discrimination of being and non-being ceases. As thus there is no external world as the object of perception, discrimination abides in its own abode. 1 This is not of materialism. It belongs to me, it does not belong to you. By abiding in its own abode is meant that it ceases to evolve. As discrimination is no more born, it is said to have ceased to evolve. This, Brahman, is not of materialism. In short, Brahman, if there is any coming and going of the vijnanas, a vanishing and appearing, a solicitation, an attachment, an intense affection, a philosophical view, a theory, an abode, a touch, the clinging to various signs, assemblage, continuity to desire, and attachment to a cause, this, Brahman, is materialism of yours but not mine. 1 A better reading of the Nanjo text may be to follow the Tiang and the Way, according to which Vikalpa is negated and Svasthain Vadishthate forms a separate sentence, thus. Discrimination ceases, and one abides in the self-abode. That by this self-abode is meant the self-abode of reality is gathered from such phrases as Yathabhutarthas Thanadarsanam. p. 200, 1. 6. Yathabhutavasthanadarsanam. Yathabhutas valakshanavas thanavasthitam, Vikalpasya pravrit svastho, loko nishkriyat, etc. The self-abode of reality is where reality is seen as it is in itself, or as the suchness of existence, or as something solitary, i.e. absolute. 2 Samtati instead of Satvanam, according to Tiang and Sung. Mahamati, I was thus questioned by the Brahman materialist, who came to me, and when he was thus sent off he silently departed. At that time there came to the Blessed One the king of the Nagas, called Krishnapakshaka, who assumed the body of a Brahman and said thus. Gautama, is there not another world? Now, young man, whence do you come? Gautama, I am come from White Isle. Brahman, that is another world. The young man thus refuted and put to silence made himself invisible without asking me anything about my own teaching, which stands in opposition to his. 1 He thought within himself. This son of the Sakyas stands outside of my own system. He is a pitiable fellow. He belongs to the school which holds the cessation of signs and causes. He talks of the cessation of discrimination which will take place when there is the cognition of an external world as something seen of one's own discrimination. And, Mahamati, you too ask me how, for one who serves the Lokayatika skilled in various incantations and in the art of eloquence, there are worldly enjoyments and not the attainment of the Dharma. Said Mahamati. What is meant, blessed one, by the words, the objects of worldly enjoyment and the Dharma? Said the Blessed One. Well said, Mahamati. You have thought deeply about this twofold meaning, having in view present and future generations. Then, Mahamati, listen well and reflect well within yourself. I will tell you. Certainly, blessed one. Said Mahamati the Bodhisattva Mahasattva and gave ear to the Blessed One. 1. There is no allusion in the Chinese versions to this dialogue between Krishnapakshaka and the Buddha. The Blessed One said this to him. What is meant by a worldly object of enjoyment, Mahamati? It means that which can be touched, attracted by, wiped off, handled, and tasted. It is that which makes one get attached to an external world, enter into a dualism on account of a wrong view, and appear again in the skandhas, where, owing to the procreative force of desire, there arise all kinds of disasters such as birth, age, disease, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, despair, etc. This is called the object of worldly enjoyment by myself and other Buddhas. This, Mahamati, is the attainment of worldly enjoyments and not that of the truth. It is materialism which one learns by serving the Lokayatika. Mahamati, what is meant by the attainment of the Dharma? When the truth of self-mind and the twofold egolessness are understood, and further, when the nature of the egolessness of things and persons is seen into, discrimination ceases to assert itself. When the various stages of bodhisattvahood are thoroughly perceived one after another, the citta, manas, and manovijnana are turned away. And when one enters upon the path of baptism by the wisdom of all the Buddhas, and takes hold of the 10 inexhaustible vows, one becomes sovereign master of all things by virtue of a life of effortlessness. Hence it is called the Dharma, as one is thereby released from all philosophical views, unsound reasonings, discriminations, and dualistic notions. As a rule, Mahamati, the philosophical views lead the ignorant, though not the wise, to a dualism, that is, to nihilism and eternalism. Eternalism rises from embracing a doctrine of no causation, while nihilism rises from believing in the annihilation of causal conditions and in the non-existence of a cause. I teach, however, the Dharma so-called which is subject to the conditions of rising, abiding, and destruction. This, Mahamati, is the conclusion with regard to worldly enjoyment and the Dharma. So it is said. 62. Beings are subdued by the reception to and are brought into subjection by the moral precepts. They are removed from philosophical views by transcendental knowledge and are nourished by the emancipations. 3. 63. All that is taught by the philosophers to no purpose is materialism. Where the realistic view of cause and effect is cherished, there is no self-realization. 64. I teach to my group of disciples one self-realization which has nothing to do with cause and effect, being free from materialism. 65. There is nothing but that which is seen of the mind itself, the duality too is of the mind. While existence one is observed as divided into the grasped and the grasping, it has nothing to do with eternalism or nihilism. 66. As long as mentation goes on, there is materialism. When there is no rising of discrimination, the world is seen as of mind itself. 67. Coming means the originating of the objective world as effect, and going is the not seeing too of the effect. When one thoroughly understands the coming and going, discrimination ceases. 68. Eternity and non-eternity, the made and not made, this world and that world. All these and other ideas belong to materialism. 74. At that time again, Mahamati the Bodhisattva Mahasattva said this to the Blessed One, Nirvana. Nirvana is talked of by the Blessed One, what?